At 8:52 p.m., Mexico's most wanted prisoner stepped behind his shower wall and vanished from a locked cell. 4 minutes later, guards opened cell 20, the door was sealed, the camera still rolling, and the man was gone. This was Altiplano, the maximum security prison built to prevent exactly one thing. Instead, it exposed something worse, a path no prisoner should have had. And if that path reached cell 20, what else had already reached inside? Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Loera was born on April 4, 1957, in La Tuna, a remote village in the Sierra Madre Mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico. There were no paved roads, no running water. The only reliable economy was opium. By his 20s, Guzmán was running logistics for the Guadalajara Cartel. By his 30s, he had carved out his own operation, the Sinaloa Cartel, and turned it into the most profitable drug trafficking organization on the planet. He was short, 5'6", which earned him the nickname El Chapo, slang for shorty. But the man behind the name was anything but small. By the early 1990s, he controlled smuggling corridors from Colombia to the US border, moving cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine through an empire of tunnels, submersibles, and corrupted officials. The DEA called the Sinaloa Cartel the most powerful drug trafficking organization in the world. In June 1993, El Chapo was captured in Guatemala and extradited to Mexico. He was sent to Puente Grande, a federal prison in Jalisco. On paper, he was a prisoner. In practice, he was a guest. Inside Puente Grande, Chapo lived a life that bore no resemblance to incarceration. He had a cell phone. He had access to gourmet food. Women were brought to his cell. He threw parties for other inmates. He paid guards so handsomely that they competed for shifts near his wing. He ran the Sinaloa Cartel with the same authority he'd exercised from outside.
In here, I am more comfortable than most people are outside.
But by late 2000, a problem emerged. The Mexican government was under increasing American pressure to extradite high-profile cartel leaders. The paperwork for Guzmán's extradition was moving through the system. Chapo understood what American courts meant. No corrupted guards, no cell phone, no power. He had to leave. On January 19, 2001, a guard named Francisco Javier Camberos Rivera, known as El Chito, wheeled a large industrial laundry cart through the service corridors. The cart was loaded with dirty sheets and towels from the prison laundry. It passed through 3 checkpoints. At each one, the guards waved it through. Nobody inspected the cart. Nobody looked underneath the sheets. Curled beneath the linen, in a space barely large enough for his body, was Joaquín Guzmán. The cart rolled through the service entrance and into the night. Chapo was loaded into a waiting vehicle. By the time anyone realized cell 20 was empty, Guzmán was already miles away. The CCTV system at Puente Grande had conveniently malfunctioned. Dozens of prison employees were investigated. El Chito had earned enough money to disappear.
We couldn't believe it. They wheeled him out like a pile of dirty laundry.
For the next 13 years, El Chapo lived as a fugitive and thrived. Forbes magazine put him on their billionaires list. Mexico's military launched operation after operation into the Sierra Madre, and Chapo evaded everyone. He married a beauty queen named Emma Coronel Aispuro. She was 18, he was 49, and fathered twin daughters. He was untouchable. For 13 years, Joaquín Guzmán ran an empire in plain sight. Then, on a February morning in Mazatlan, his luck ran out. Dawn, a beachfront condominium in Mazatlan. Mexican Marines, Infanteria de Marina, stacked up outside the door. Intelligence had tracked Guzmán to this building. Inside the condo, Chapo was asleep with his wife Emma Coronel Aispuro and their twin daughters. The Marines breached the door. There was no firefight, no chase, no dramatic last stand. Chapo was found in a bedroom, unarmed, calm. He identified himself. He didn't resist. After 13 years as the world's most wanted fugitive, the capture took minutes. Target secured. No shots fired. This time, the Mexican government wasn't taking chances. Chapo wouldn't be going back to Puente Grande. He was sent to the Federal Social Readaptation Center number 1, known as Altiplano. Located in Almoloya de Juarez, state of Mexico, Altiplano was the country's maximum security federal prison. Unlike Puente Grande, Altiplano had been designed with men like Guzmán in mind. CCTV cameras covered every cell, every corridor, every common area. Inmates wore GPS tracking bracelets. The walls were reinforced concrete, thick enough, theoretically, to resist tunneling. Guard rotations were randomized. Visits were strictly controlled. In the facility's history, no inmate had ever escaped. This facility was designed for exactly this type of prisoner. He will not leave. Officials on both sides of the border echoed the message. El Chapo was done.
They told me he was in the most secure prison in Mexico. I said nothing. I just smiled.
But Chapo's network was already moving. Within weeks of his arrival, the Sinaloa cartel's intelligence operation turned its attention to Altiplano. Not to bribe their way in, the facility was too scrutinized. Instead, they would build a way in from the outside. They began with the blueprints. Architectural plans for the prison were obtained. What mattered was the data, the exact layout of the maximum security wing, the position of every cell, and, critically, the GPS coordinates, precise to the centimeter of the concrete floor beneath each cell. Cell 20, Chapo's cell. The camera mounted in the ceiling corner covered most of the space, the bed, the toilet, the desk. But it couldn't see behind the shower partition. When the cartel's surveillance team studied the camera specs, they found the lens angle left exactly one patch of floor invisible. A 50 by 50 centimeter square directly behind the partition wall. They measured it from the blueprints. They confirmed it against the camera's field of view. Then they checked it a third time. That square of concrete, roughly the size of a manhole cover, would become the most consequential piece of floor in Mexican penal history. A property was identified 1.5 kilometers from the prison walls, in the nearby community of Santa Juanita. It was purchased. A house was constructed on the lot. An unremarkable structure, indistinguishable from the others in the neighborhood. But the real construction was underground in the basement. A tunnel crew began boring horizontally from the basement toward the prison. GPS coordinates guided every meter of the drill. The target, directly beneath cell 20, directly beneath the shower floor, directly beneath the camera's blind spot. The tunnel was started from the outside. All Chapo had to do was wait. It took months. The tunnel extended approximately 1.5 kilometers, just under 1 mile, from the exit house to the prison. It ran at a depth of roughly 10 meters below the surface, deep enough to pass beneath roads, drainage systems, and the prison's perimeter fence without detection. This was not a hole dug with spoons. This was civil engineering. The walls were reinforced with poured concrete to prevent collapse. A ventilation system, PVC pipes connected to a surface-level air intake, circulated breathable air throughout the corridor. Electrical wiring strung along the ceiling powered fluorescent lighting that illuminated the entire tunnel from end to end. And on the floor, a metal rail track. The track ran the full 1.5 kilometers, from the exit house to the vertical shaft beneath cell 20. Mounted on the track was a modified motorcycle. A machine stripped of everything unnecessary, fitted with flanged wheels to ride the rails. Designed to carry one person through a mile of tunnel at maximum speed. The motorcycle wasn't an afterthought. It was a calculation. El Chapo needed to travel 1.5 kilometers before anyone noticed he was missing. Walking would take 20 minutes or more, running perhaps 15. The motorcycle could cover the distance in minutes. Speed was the margin between freedom and recapture.
A motorcycle on rails underground. For 1.5 miles, you can't make this up.
But the tunnel's most remarkable feature wasn't its length, or its lighting, or its motorcycle. It was its precision. The tunnel had to terminate at one exact point, directly beneath the shower floor of cell 20. Not cell 19, not cell 21, not a maintenance corridor or a guard station. The shower floor, specifically, the 20-inch square of concrete that no camera could see. The engineering team used GPS coordinates to guide the borehead's trajectory over the final 50 meters, correcting course centimeter by centimeter. A deviation of even 2 meters in any direction would have meant breaching into the wrong cell. The fact that they hit their target precisely, 1.5 kilometers of drilling terminating at a 50 by 50 centimeter target, was a feat comparable to commercial mining alignment. When the bore head reached the prison foundation, the crew drilled upward through the base of the building, through concrete and rebar, until they were within centimeters of the shower floor of cell 20. The final layer of concrete was scored from below, cut nearly through but left intact. A thin shell that could be lifted like a trapdoor from above. In the exit house, the preparations were complete. Vehicles were parked. Changes of clothing were staged. Everything was in place. The railroad, the motorcycle, the ventilation, the lighting, the scored floor, the vehicles. All that remained was the signal. It was a Saturday. Joaquín Guzmán followed his routine. Dinner was served. He moved around his cell. The CCTV camera in the ceiling corner recorded him. The guards monitoring the feed noted nothing unusual. Saturdays were quiet. At approximately 8:52 p.m., the figure on the monitor walked toward the shower partition. He moved behind it. On the screen, his shape disappeared behind the concrete divider. This was not unusual. Inmates used the shower area regularly. The guards had seen this 1,000 times. He would reappear in a minute, maybe 2. He did not reappear. Behind the partition, in the 20-inch square of floor that no camera could see, the pre-scored concrete panel came away cleanly. Chapo lifted it and set it aside. Below, a vertical shaft, roughly 10 meters deep, with a steel ladder bolted to the wall. He gripped the ladder and descended, rung by rung, 10 meters straight down. His feet hit the tunnel floor. He was underground. Above him, the cell was empty. The camera continued recording an image of a shower partition with nothing behind it. The door remained locked. The magnetic seal registered as secure. At the base of the shaft, the motorcycle waited on its rails. El Chapo mounted it. The tunnel stretched ahead of him, a straight, lit corridor 1.5 kilometers long. 5.5 feet tall, reinforced concrete walls on both sides. The ventilation system hummed, the fluorescent tubes cast clean light. The metal rails gleamed. He rode. The motorcycle carried him beneath the prison perimeter, beneath the guard towers, beneath the roads, beneath the fields. 1.5 kilometers of tunnel in a matter of minutes. Above him, guards patrolled the walls of a prison, holding a man who was no longer there. The irony was structural. They were guarding an empty room while their prisoner traveled beneath their feet at the speed of a motorcycle. When we reviewed the footage later, you could pinpoint the exact second he disappeared. And then nothing. For 17 minutes, the cell looked normal and empty. The motorcycle reached the end of the rail track. Chapo dismounted. A second ladder led upward into the basement of the purpose-built exit house. He climbed. He emerged through a hatch in the basement floor. The house was empty except for what mattered: clothing, keys, and a vehicle idling outside. Within minutes of dropping through his shower floor, Joaquín Guzmán was in a vehicle moving through the Mexican countryside. The motorcycle, engine still warm, sat alone on its rails underground. Nobody knew. The cell was still locked. The alarm had not been triggered. The prison was still operating normally. The most elaborate prison escape in modern history had been executed in near total silence. It would be minutes before anyone noticed, hours before the full scope became clear.
6 months,
6 months before El Chapo's freedom would cost him everything. Minutes after the escape, a guard reviewing the CCTV feed noticed something wrong with cell 20. The shower visit had gone on too long. He radioed the maximum security wing. No response from the cell intercom. An officer was dispatched to check physically. He unlocked the door. He stepped inside. Cell 20 is empty. I repeat, cell 20 is empty. Altiplano went into emergency lockdown. Every cell was opened and physically checked. Every inmate accounted for except one. By the time the alarm reached Mexico City, Chapo had been driving for over 20 minutes. The escape detonated across Mexico like a bomb. President Enrique Peña Nieto had personally guaranteed that El Chapo would never escape again. His administration had lobbied against U.S. extradition, insisting that Mexican prisons were capable of holding him. The tunnel beneath Cell 20 rendered that argument grotesque. Within days, the prison director and dozens of officials were detained for questioning. A thorough investigation has been launched into all personnel responsible. Mexico deployed its largest manhunt in history. Military units swept across 6 states. Navy Marines set up checkpoints on highways throughout Sinaloa, Sonora, and Durango. Helicopter patrols ran 24 hours a day over the Sierra Madre. The United States contributed satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and DEA agents embedded with Mexican teams. But Chapo knew these mountains. He'd hidden in them for 13 years. In August, Marines breached a ranch house in Cosala, deep in the Sinaloa foothills. They found warm food on a table, a bed with sheets still rumpled, and a TV still playing. Chapo had been there 30 minutes before. He'd been warned by a spotter on a nearby hilltop. In September, another raid, another empty house. This time they found a tunnel entrance in the floor. The cartel hadn't just hidden their boss, they'd built redundancy into the hiding. Then, in October 2015, Chapo made the decision that would end him. A message was relayed to a journalist, then to an actor. The actor was Sean Penn. Chapo wanted something that no tunnel could give him: recognition, a biopic, a legacy. He agreed to an interview with Penn for Rolling Stone magazine. In early October 2015, Penn traveled to a jungle clearing in the mountains of Durango and sat across from the fugitive drug lord. Cameras rolled. Chapo spoke about his childhood, his empire, his philosophy. He talked like a man who believed he would never be caught again. The interview was a security disaster. The communications required to arrange the meeting left a trail. Mexican and American intelligence intercepted fragments. Location data was extracted. The circle tightened.
I wanted to understand the man behind the myth. I didn't consider that the meeting itself would be his undoing.
The man who built a mile-long tunnel beneath a prison couldn't resist the spotlight. And that spotlight would lead them directly to his door. 4:30 a.m. Los Mochis, a coastal city in Sinaloa. Mexican Marines surrounded a White House on a residential street. Intelligence had tracked Guzmán to this location. They breached the door. Inside, cartel gunmen opened fire. The firefight was brief and brutal. 5 cartel members were eliminated, 6 arrested, 1 Marine wounded. But Chapo wasn't among those captured inside. He'd run again, through a tunnel, of course, another tunnel. This one led from the house to a storm drain beneath the city streets. Chapo and a lieutenant emerged from the drain, soaked and disoriented. They commandeered it, a Ford Focus, and drove. He ran through the sewer. We pursued. This time there was nowhere to go. Marines spotted the stolen vehicle within minutes. On a highway outside Los Mochis, the car was intercepted. Joaquín Guzmán was pulled from the passenger seat. He was unshaven, exhausted, wearing a dirty undershirt. No tailored suit, no army of bodyguards, no engineered tunnel with lighting and a motorcycle. The most powerful drug lord on the planet looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks.
I am Guzmán.
6 months of freedom. 6 months of running, of mountains, of vanity and vanishing. It ended on a highway, in a stolen car, at dawn. This time, Mexico didn't wait. On January 19, 2017, one day before Donald Trump's inauguration, Mexico extradited Joaquín Guzmán to the United States. He was flown to a New York area airport in handcuffs, surrounded by DEA agents. The man who had escaped 2 Mexican prisons would now face American concrete.
We've got him on American soil now. He is not going anywhere.
The trial in Brooklyn federal court lasted 11 weeks. Former associates testified against him. The evidence spanned decades. On February 12, 2019, The jury found Joaquín Guzmán guilty on all 10 counts. On July 17, 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. He was transferred to ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in the United States. It sits at 5,800 feet above sea level in the high desert of Colorado. His cell is approximately 7 feet by 12 feet. Poured concrete walls, floor, ceiling. A concrete bed with a thin mattress. A concrete desk. A concrete stool. A small window, 4 inches wide, that shows only sky. He is allowed out of his cell for 1 hour per day alone in a concrete exercise room. He sees no other inmates. He receives no visitors beyond legal counsel. The facility's foundation is reinforced to a depth that renders tunneling mathematically impossible. His wife, Emma Coronel Aispuro, was arrested at Dulles Airport in February 2021. She pleaded guilty and was released in September 2023. His sons continued cartel operations until their own captures began in 2023 and 2024. At Altiplano, the shower partition in cell 20 was removed. The hole in the floor was sealed with reinforced concrete. The tunnel was filled. The motorcycle was recovered. The exit house was demolished. Joaquín Guzmán sits in 84 square feet of concrete, 5,800 feet above sea level in the Colorado Rockies. He has no tunnel, no motorcycle, no rails, no GPS coordinates to guide a drill, no corrupted guards to wheel him out in a cart. The man who bought his way out of every cage Mexico ever built learned one final lesson. Some walls are not for sale.